My name is Kasher Rurk. I'm 36 years old, living in New Boston, year 2047. The city glows with holographic billboards and swarms of delivery drones, but in my family, the world still runs the old way, prestige framed on the wall, diplomas behind glass, and formal dinners where you're expected to wear a blazer. We're what you'd call a legacy family. My grandfather, a federal judge with his name carved into a granite courthouse. My father, a constitutional law professor, once an advisor to Congress. My mother, a retired Air Force colonel, her uniform pressed and framed like a museum piece. My brother, a high-profile attorney, faced regularly on political news. My sister, a neurosurgeon with her own interview segment on a national health channel. And me. In their eyes, I'm the one who works from home, the kid who sits in front of a screen all day, typing code for a few no-name startups. No headlines, no interviews, no framed degrees in the family living room. The truth. I'm a federal-level cybersecurity operations coordinator, reporting directly to the National Security Office and supporting a classified counter-cyberterrorism task force. I've overseen secure transmissions where a single vulnerability could collapse national defense systems. Every project I touch is stamped top secret, and by law, I can't talk about it. The thing is, they've never even asked. For over a decade, I've been the quiet insurance policy my family never acknowledged. Not because I wanted credit, but because I was the only one who could pull certain strings without leaving a trace. When my brother got caught in a DUI checkpoint 2 counties over, I wired the bail money before my parents even checked their voicemail. No one thanked me. 2 weeks later, he posted a photo in his tailored suit with the caption, "The grind never stops." I didn't like it. I didn't comment. I just let the algorithm bury the truth. When my sister had a panic spiral 3 days before presenting her research at a national medical conference, she called me sobbing at 1:00 a.m. I rewrote her entire presentation overnight, running simulations so her data would hold up under scrutiny. She got a standing ovation. In her speech, she thanked everyone who believed in me. My name didn't make the cut. When my mother's post-military insurance didn't cover the cost of her kidney transplant, she called me voice shaking for the first time in years to say she was short. I transferred the remaining balance before she even finished explaining. She never brought it up again, but she did send my brother a framed photo of her recovery with the caption, "Grateful for my rock." I didn't do these things because I wanted a seat at their table. I did them because family, in my book, meant showing up when it mattered whether they noticed or not. But over time, I realized it wasn't just that they didn't see me. They'd rewritten me entirely, turned me into a character that fit their comfort. The aimless sister, the deadbeat in nice clothes, the one they didn't have to introduce with pride. And every time I stayed silent, I was helping them write that story. At first, I told myself it was just forgetfulness. A missed group photo here, an email I somehow wasn't copied on, a holiday dinner I learned about through social media. But over time, the pattern sharpened. The omissions weren't sloppy, they were clean, seamless, designed so no one outside the family would even notice I wasn't there. When my father introduced his children at a charity gala, he gestured toward my brother and sister. 2 of my greatest achievements. The audience clapped. No one asked about a third. When my sister hosted her engagement party, the excuse for my absence was just close friends. I later saw the photos, neighbors, distant cousins, her entire department at the hospital, and my brother's college roommate. When my brother was promoted to senior partner, there was a rooftop reception with speeches, a champagne tower, and a photo backdrop with his name in gold letters. He toasted our parents, his mentors, even his old football coach. I stood in the back near the catering trays, holding a half-empty glass of seltzer. He didn't make eye contact once. These weren't oversights. This was narrative control. They were polishing the family image, and I didn't fit the frame. The more they left me out, the easier it became to keep leaving me out. And the more I stayed quiet, the more their version of me became the truth. Until one day, an invitation reached my inbox by mistake, a confirmation email from a Senate events coordinator. A formal dinner. Guest list full of political figures, decorated officers, and my entire family. My name wasn't there. And the man being honored that night, the same senator whose communications security I'd personally locked down just months earlier. I stared at that email for a full minute before it sank in. A formal dinner. Black tie. Security clearance required for entry. My parents, my siblings, their spouses, all on the list. Me, nowhere. The irony was almost funny. 3 months earlier, I'd spent 72 straight hours sealing a vulnerability in the Senate's encrypted comms, a flaw that could have exposed military deployments across the Pacific. The man being honored at that dinner, Senator Halden Gray, had signed my classified commendation. He just didn't know my name. No one outside the clearance bubble ever did. I didn't forward the email to my mother. I didn't text my sister. I didn't ask why. That night, I sat in my apartment, blinds half drawn against the flicker of neon from the street, scrolling through old family photos. Every frame was a timeline of my own disappearance. Birthday cakes I'd baked but wasn't in the shot, vacations where I'd taken the pictures, not been in them. It hit me in a way it never had before. This wasn't an accident. This was maintenance. A story they'd been tending for years, pruning me out of the frame until I was nothing but a rumor. I thought about showing up at that dinner, about walking past the brass nameplates and security checkpoints, badge in hand, and letting the truth drop like a stone in the middle of their curated pond. But I didn't. Not yet. Because there's a difference between revenge and precision takes timing. 3 months later, the invitation came. Not for a gala, not for a Senate dinner, for my mother's 65th birthday. The text landed 2 days before the event. If you're free, come by. Keep it low-key, this is a family thing. I almost ignored it, but something in me colder than anger, sharper than pride, said go. The venue was a private dining hall in the Upper District, all glass walls and gold fixtures. I arrived early, parked in the farthest corner, and walked in wearing a black dress cut simple and sharp. No jewelry, no coat, no explanations. Inside, the room buzzed with laughter and the clink of crystal. My mother floated between tables, greeting guests like a fundraiser host. She spotted me, blinked once, then offered a thin smile. You made it. Just don't make this about you, okay? My brother was next, already halfway through his drink. Look who decided to crawl out of her apartment. Deadbeat made it after all. A few chuckles followed. No one stopped him. I didn't respond. Just found a seat at the far edge of the room, close enough to watch, far enough to disappear into the blur of conversation. Then the door opened. Senator Halden Gray stepped in, no entourage, just a charcoal suit and the quiet gravity of someone used to being the axis of the room. He scanned the tables. Once, twice, and then his eyes found mine. He didn't go to the head table. He didn't greet my parents. He walked the length of the room, slow and deliberate, until he stopped directly in front of me. And then he saluted. A crisp, formal, regulation-perfect salute, the kind reserved for those who'd earned it. Agent Rourke, he said, loud enough to cut through every conversation. Didn't expect to see you here. Every fork froze midair, my father's face drained, my mother's smile faltered, my brother's smirk evaporated. I stood, returned the salute with a single nod. Neither did I, Senator. He gestured to the empty chair beside me. May I? And just like that, the entire room tilted. The air went taut. They didn't know what I did for a living, but they knew, instantly, that I wasn't who they thought I was. Conversations didn't resume right away. It was like the sound had been vacuumed out of the hall, the low hum of chatter replaced by a silence that carried weight. People glanced over, then quickly looked away, like eye contact might draw them into something they weren't cleared to understand. Senator Gray didn't explain the salute. He didn't have to. His presence beside me did all the talking. He asked about my work in the same careful, coded way you use when both parties know the real details can't be spoken aloud. My sister drifted over, balancing a plate and a smile that looked just a touch too tight. She placed a hand on the senator's shoulder. "So glad you could make it, Senator. Kasha, I didn't know you two knew each other." Gray didn't look up. "She's more than earned my respect." The line landed like a dropped glass. My mother busied herself at another table. My father stayed seated, watching like he was trying to work through a problem he couldn't solve. My brother made a half-hearted joke about the cake being as dry as government work, but no one laughed this time. From that moment on, the flow of the evening shifted. People spoke more quietly. My name started slipping into conversations, tentatively, like they were trying out a word they hadn't said in years. No one asked me directly what I did. Not here, not now. When dessert arrived, I stayed seated while the others mingled, the senator still beside me. I didn't feel the usual pressure to perform or the old reflex to shrink into the background. For the first time in years, I felt still, solid, seen. I left before the candles were lit, walking out into the sharp night air without a coat. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long minute, hands on the wheel, not crying, not even smiling, just breathing. Because I knew without a doubt the story they'd been telling about me had just fractured, and the cracks weren't going to close. The text came 2 days later, from my sister. "What exactly do you do?" No greeting, no apology, just curiosity, the kind that arrives when your version of someone no longer fits the facts. I locked my phone and slid it across the table. I wasn't interested in satisfying curiosity. Not from her, not from any of them. The follow-ups came anyway. "Adam won't tell me, but I think I messed up, if you ever want to talk. It would be nice to move past everything." I deleted each one, not out of spite, out of clarity. For years, I'd adjusted myself to their comfort, dimming my work, my life, my presence so they could stand taller in the story they'd built. But comfort built on erasure isn't love, it's control, and I was done letting them narrate me. The next group invite came for Easter brunch. My mother signed it. From the real adults. Once I might have shown up, pretending I didn't notice the jab. This time, I didn't even reply. Instead, I took a walk through the historic district, past the old stone courthouse with my grandfather's name on it, down to the river trail that ran behind a nondescript federal complex. No signage, no flag, just reinforced glass and 3 armed guards. I'd filed my first threat response protocol in that building. It had never been in a photo album, never made a family toast, but it had stopped an attack that could have lit up half the eastern seaboard. Recognition doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in the way a room goes still, or the way a man in a position of power lifts his hand in salute, and in that moment, forces everyone else to confront what they've been pretending not to see. That night in the banquet hall, Senator Gray didn't give me power. He acknowledged it, and I've decided I don't walk into rooms where I'm merely tolerated. I don't explain myself in conversations that were never meant to hear the truth. My life is quiet now, but it is not small, and I will never again let anyone mistake the two.